Now, I've been told many times here on YouTube and elsewhere that faith, referring to my faith as a Christian, is a great cop-out. That faith and reason are somehow diametrically opposed to one another. And that atheists don't have faith, they merely lack a faith in God.
That's not entirely accurate. Atheists lack belief in gods, not faith in them. Lacking faith might be the reason for that absence of belief, but is not, in and of itself, atheism. Let's do this. Greetings, fellow space travelers. BionicDance here. I'm afraid I have to make a video to this fellow again because he seems to have a skewed vision of atheism, and one that needs correcting. In fact, the video to which I'm replying is actually much longer than the bits on which I'll focus because, at its base, his video starts from assumptions which cannot be allowed to stand.
Although they say assume nothing, they have faith in what is called philosophical naturalism, which basically says nature is all that there is.
And therein lies the problem. Right from the start, and as becomes apparent throughout his video, the assumption is that atheists are engaging in presupposition, declaring a conclusion first, and then cramming real-world facts to fit. It's possible some atheists do this, but I've encountered precious few, if any. Most atheists have become so, or never were God believers to begin with, because of experience, allowing the observed evidence to guide them to their conclusion, perhaps even supplanting a previously held conclusion. And there has been no evidence of a God's existence, only the demand of faith, which was not compelling enough to lead to belief.
Methodological naturalists limit their scientific research to the study of natural causes because any attempts to define causal relationships with the supernatural are never fruitful and result in the creation of scientific dead ends and God-of-the-gaps type hypotheses. To avoid these traps, scientists assume that all causes are empirical and naturalistic.
Then I suppose I'm not a methodological naturalist, because this only half describes my position. I would never limit my study to natural causes. If natural causes are all there are, then that's what I will find. If the supernatural exists, hopefully I will find that too. My mind is open on the matter, but I have to be able to find what's there before accepting its factuality. You see, I'm an apistevism, which roughly means that I do not use faith as a method of gaining knowledge. If someone claims a thing is real and exists outside of their imagination, they have to be able to show it to me, instead of demanding I have faith in it. If someone can cast lightning bolts from their fingertips, and they can prove to me that they're doing it by force of will, rather than concealed technology, perhaps even teaching me how to do such magic, that would be awesome. And if God exists, and I'm expected to believe as such, I would need to be presented with similarly concrete evidence, which no theist ever has. I didn't presuppose a God does not exist before I even started looking. And it's because of that lack of evidence that I'm not a believer, thus an atheist.
This is where science meets up with religiosity. This is where their so-called reason meets with faith. And so within science, where you have all sorts of gaps, they fill it in with naturalistic assumptions. When it comes to ages of rocks and age of the universe and interpretation of the fossil record and all sorts of other things where they're trying to seek after where everything came from, the origin of all things and the origin of man, etc., all sorts of assumptions are made.
That can only be said by someone who hasn't done their homework. I have only a cursory understanding of how it all works, but using radiometric dating to determine the age of the Earth, of minerals and fossils and the like, is hardly God-of-the-gaps reasoning. It fills in knowledge gaps with factual evidence, which can be tested by absolutely anybody who's of a mind to do it. I can't think of anything less God-of-the-gaps-like. And this method of age measuring was discovered, tested, not presupposed. It works. If you have a method of measuring the age of the universe that doesn't assume a biblical starting point, let us know. If this method manages to be more accurate than radiometric dating, if it shows, for example, young Earth creationism to be true, then I guess we'll just have to accept that maybe the Bible had a point. But only on the age of the Earth. It doesn't get to be considered 100% accurate just because it won on a single issue. No worldview does.
We all have the same evidence, and all of us reason beyond that evidence to something ultimate.
No, we don't. And I think that this is a huge part of the disconnect, the communication gap between atheists and theists. It's been my experience that a huge majority of theists simply cannot wrap their heads around the idea of a life without religious belief, and so get an inaccurate picture of the atheist paradigm. Now, obviously, I can't speak for all atheists, but I don't have a God-shaped gap in my worldview which I've filled with other things. I don't have this need for, in his words, something ultimate. I look at what's there and what can be shown to be so, and like it or not, I have to accept that that's what is. Okay, perhaps we don't quite have all of our facts straight yet, but without evidence to think so, it's worth proceeding with our current understanding. Perhaps there is more than we've found, but I'm not going to think so until it has been found in an objective, mind-external manner, because otherwise I can't justify asserting its existence. I suppose the question could be asked whether I'm seeking more than I currently know, and perhaps I am, albeit passively. There's a lot in my life that requires greater attention, and I find myself quite content as is. Well, except perhaps for the part where I'm not traveling to other planets in a hyperspace-capable spaceship anyway, 'cause how cool would that be? But until God-botherers can learn to accept that some people simply aren't religious, aren't using parts of the natural world as a proxy for the God they don't believe in, then I'm not sure an understanding of atheism will ever be possible, and thus all arguments against it will stray into strawman territory.
What is your reason for saying that your reason is reasonable, whereas the other person's reasoning toward their faith is unreasonable?
Because their faith is faith. They're not out there in the real world trying to prove what they believe. They say they have faith, and that's enough. End of story. Even if I don't agree with the presupposition of the naturalist as it's been described here in this video, at least they're out there, studying, trying to find what is. Theists tend to not go much further than their holy books, and sometimes not even then. It's remarkable how selectively read those scriptures can be, and the number of beliefs held which are not contained within. As an apistivist, I will not engage in such faith-based reasoning for conclusions. The naturalist gets results. The theist gets wishful thinking. When a believer can produce the same sorts of data as a naturalist, remember my example of the magic user creating lightning, then we can start having a serious discussion. But not before. Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think.